Going to do a video on gun safes, gun cabinets, and basically the secure storage of your firearms. Now, there are a lot of options here, and a lot of it depends on what you have, what you collect, and basically also where do you live. Do you have an apartment? Is it your house? You know, do you own the home? Are you not going to move? Are you pretty permanent in your residence? Or like when I was younger, you know, I lived in an apartment for a couple of years at a time and moved from one place to the other. And basically when you have guns, no matter if you have two or, like me, a very large number, you want to keep them safely stored. And the two most common things are a gun safe, which is probably the best. I had a break-in. A lot of people I know had break-ins. They don't touch the safe. The safe's unscratched. No, they don't even go near it. They don't screw with it. They don't fool with it. The next level down would be like a gun storage cabinet. And what that is a sheet metal cabinet with locks on it. And what happened to me is I've collected guns, and I had a very large safe, and it did me well for years. I had to move, I lost my job, I had to thin out my collection. Then that large 45 or 48 gun safe was adequate. I've purchased a lot of guns. Now the safe isn't adequate. I bought a smaller safe, a 14 gun safe, and that was immediately filled up. And I found that now I have an overflow. I have more guns. So, and then again, it's the cost and everything else. The cost varies. Security cabinets, depending on the size or the amount of guns, the smaller ones I think are around 100, 125. I just purchased an 18 gun stack-on security cabinet. It's convertible, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit. And that was about $200. And they come in different sizes. You can get tiny ones that only hold 6 guns to most of the security cabinets. I think Stack-On makes a very large one that'll hold 20 or so guns or 30 guns, a double cabinet. Safes, same thing. You can buy safes with locks on them that hold a few guns, 5, 6 to 48, 50. They're humongous things. And you know, a lot of it's your price. Safes are usually the small ones. 14 gun ones are about 300 and up into the thousands, depending on what type of security you're comfortable with, and you know what you want. So let's start from the beginning. You have to look at what are you going to put in the safe. Let's do a common sense thing. You know, what am I putting in the safe? Is my gun collection like 4 guns or something? The grand total of the guns is, you know, maybe $800. You don't need a $2,000 safe. You probably get away with a nice storage cabinet strategically placed in your house and bolted to the floor. Would probably suffice for sufficient security. And also, what are you going to put in a safe? Say you invest in a safe. They're adaptable or convertible. You can have half the safe set up for, like, say 5 guns, and then shelves. You can put your documents, your valuables, coin collections, all your, you know, your passport, your checks. So the best thing to do is let's start at what we're going to put in the safe. And I got a array of guns here, and I'll explain to you about the size of the guns and the type of the guns and the problems I ran into, you know, collecting in that with it. And I'll go over this here in a second. Okay, what am I going to put in the safe? As you can see, here's an array of guns. One thing is size and type of the firearms. Here we have a little 94 carbine with a 6-inch barrel. That's about the shortest gun I have. The M1 carbine in that is about the same length, same size. Probably I didn't get those little M98s, I got like a half dozen of them. They're probably in the smallest size range there. The M95 carbines might be a little longer. Next to it is a 16-inch barrel AR-15 with the stock folded, next to an AR-15A2 with the full 20-inch length barrel. Now you'll find that most of your sporting guns and rifles are in this size length. We'll use this as an example. The average size is about that long. And you see, and the reason the difference is if you have guns that vary from this to the largest one is this flintlock musket, okay, which this really doesn't fit in any safes. As you can see the difference, you know, there's another 1.5 feet on the barrel length on that musket. So getting these guns, you know, you can adjust the height of the rack. So you have to think, and then what I have to do is I have to put like all the short guns in one storage area and all the long ones in another, because I lose internal space on the safes. You know, because the long guns, you can't put no racks above or shelves above on the safe, and you lose space. And it's kind of wasteful, especially if you're paying out a lot of money for a nice safe. And then the next one there is 1100 with a 30-inch barrel. Now that's a little different. You notice the length there is a little bit different. Then on top of that, it's pretty close to your Nagant. All you guys out there, your Nagant fans, you're going to have your Nagants are about storing a shotgun with a 30-inch barrel. Above that is a Remington rolling block. Okay, now compared, you can see, you know, there's a bit of a difference in the length between these short guns and them long guns. So that's going to come into play when setting your safe up. So you should take an inventory of your guns, what you're going to store, what size they are. And like I said, if you're in the black powder and that, now you're getting problematic. This thing here hangs on a wall most of the time because it just doesn't fit into the safes. You know, the shelves and that. I'd have to take the shelving out and store that gun in there right. So first thing you do is figure out how many guns I have, what size they are, and what kind of a safe. You know, this comes into play on your selection of what you're going to buy. Because you don't want to run out and buy something for $800,000 and find out that it don't work out for you. So use some thought in there when you start. That's one thing. Now another thing that I tried is I tried hooks, security hooks. Now I'm going to do a couple separate videos. I'll cover these security hooks and I'll cover the security cabinet by itself. But see, I got a couple there. These are parts guns. These guns, if something either missing or damaged, and I got them up high on the wall, you can't really get to them, and I have them kind of double secured with a lock. I drilled a hole through the bracket and put a lock on there. So that way, if anybody does try to grab it, it's not that easy. They got to have tools. They're going to have to cut stuff. But I'll go over the hook better. And here's a stack-on cabinet. I'm going to do a separate video on that. And this is probably the bottom line. And as you see from the box, you have different configurations. Okay? 18 guns. 9 guns on the left side, shelving on the right. 9 rifles, shotguns on the right side, shelving on the left. You know, shelves with room for 3 rifles or shotguns. Most of your safes and cabinets will give you the option. So you got to do a lot of homework. You use some planning and figure out what you have, what you want to store, and then make the purchase that fits your needs the best, you know, and your security level. All right. All right, so let's take a second and try to review that. First thing you do is figure out what type of guns you have, the majority of them, how long or short they are. Bolt action rifles, you gotta remember the bolt sticking out on the side as compared to like lever action semi-autos. You can get them in closer, you don't have that problem. If you have a lot of bolt action rifles, putting them side by side may be problematic. You might have to stagger them in there. The length also determines, like I showed with the configuration in that, you know, your length will throw off your shelf space or your options that way. So put some planning into there. And then your security levels. I showed you like a security hook. I'll do a video on that, explain how that thing works. It's something I tried concocting to store guns where they're visible. It's kind of neat to see them, but your security really goes downhill when they're out in the open and people can get their hands on them. Next level is a security cabinet, which I'll do a video on this cabinet I just bought. We'll take a good look at it. And then the next is your safes. And the safes vary in features and qualities. It's a very vast range. So basically you'd have to see what you're putting in the safe, what the cost is, will it suit your needs down the road. Are you going to buy more guns? Say you buy a 20 gun safe and you got 15 guns, and then 3 years later you purchase some guns, now you got 25 guns or 30 guns. You know, and then handguns. That's another thing. Most of my handguns are either in the box on the shelf, or I bought these big Plano-like storage things. I double layered. I can store 4 or 5 handguns in there, and then just put that box in the shelf there. Or some of the guns I just put in a holster, put on a shelf. And they do have racks and other devices that you can stack your handguns a little bit more orderly, neatly, save you some space. But that's about the basics of what you got to think about before you go buying a safe. And then I'll make a few other different videos. I don't want to get this too long. And I'll show you a closer look at the security cabinet and a safe I just bought, a smaller safe, and where I got them, an idea of the price of them. And then I'll do one on them hooks. I'll show you how I use them. Gun hooks are pretty secure. I like them better than just an open hook or whatever. Okay, that's the beginning, and now we'll go in a little closer look at some of the cabinets and safes I have.